As a modern politologist, I must address the problem of confrontation between Russia and Georgia. Russian militiamen used to harass and terrorize ethnic Georgians and Georgian immigrants in Russia by constant arrests, and I was even harassed by Moscow militia members in Moscow 1993, when a corrupt low-ranking Moscow militia member told me that if Russian nationalist mayor Lushkov orders evictions of non-Russians in Moscow, we would comply with his order. It does say about Russian military and Russian nationalist fervor and Russian hatred towards the Caucasians. Very unhealthy feelings, as many people of Russian society are mentally ill homopaths, and Russian Prime Minister is a mentally ill homopath. Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, who's a neo-communist, ex-KGB member. He's a neo-fascist who hates political opponents and who ordered assassinations of Anna Politkovskaya out of hatred and ordered pogroms of Caucasian members of Caucasians merchants in Moscow, where that nationalist fervor of a neo-Nazi Russian youth group Nashi brought pogroms and lynchings to Caucasians whom Russian nationalists hated, and they called themselves Russians, and they told non-Russians they would have problems because they were non-Russians. And I believe recent conflict of Russia with Georgia, the fault lies on Russian military that committed act of war and aggression against Georgia repeatedly by shooting down unarmed Georgian drone. It's Russian MiG-27 recently has shut down unarmed Georgian drone, and actually members of Russian military attacked, assaulted, and illegally arrested 6 Georgian bodyguards, police officers, recently out of hatred toward Caucasians. I believe that perceived Russian nationalism further will bring Russia to the brink of extinction and extreme poverty and degradation, as Russia should embrace internationalism, not nationalism. Russia should embrace racial integration, and Russian members of the Russian military should stop hating Caucasians, because Caucasians are not their enemies, and they might have different color of their hair, and their hair is normally black, but their nose is something not as straight as Russian noses are, but still Georgians as much deserve to be respected, and Russians are. I believe that Russian military committed acts of aggression against Georgia, and they actually illegally supplied grenade launchers to Abkhazia, mob, and actually those weapons, grenade launchers, was seized by Georgians because Georgians confiscated them. And I believe that any further attempts of Russian military to attack Georgians and to wage acts of war and aggression against Georgia will be punished by not only Georgian military but NATO military corps, which will join Georgians in their defense of their territorial integrity and national sovereignty, which has been violated by neo-Nazi Russian military members. Russian nationalists should stop, as mostly Russian nationalists are mentally ill homopaths who hate Caucasians for no good reasons. Caucasians being defiled and denounced as mafiosos, but that's untrue. Most of Caucasians, they coexist peacefully with Russians, and they actually just want racial integration. But actually, if Russian President Medvedev should immediately suspend that neo-Nazi ex-KGB hardcore communist Vladimir Putin, who promised that capital in Russia will win over his dead body in Brussels in 1997. And I believe that Russian President Dmitry Medvedev should remove as unreliable neo-fascist elements from Russian military, immediately conduct a policy of attrition and withdraw Russian military from Abkhazia, because they actually engage in military provocation, which will cost number of lives to Russian and Georgian military and also to NATO military, because NATO military will gonna get involved if Georgia is member of NATO, and US military will get involved as well in this conflict, Russian-Georgian conflict, because this is unbridled military aggression of neo-Nazi Russian military against independent and small sovereign Republic of Georgia. I fully support efforts of Georgian President Saakashvili to negotiate peace in this Russian-Georgian military conflict, but I demand him that he called Russian President Medvedev and negotiate peace with him and demand withdrawal of Russian troops as neo-fascist terrorist elements from Abkhazia, and also demand involvement of NATO troops to replace Russian peacekeepers, which only will attack and kill Georgians out of hatred towards Caucasians. Recent attack of Russian peacekeepers armed with Kalashnikovs against Georgian policemen, and explains that Russian military is going to terrorize Georgian people unless we've been thrown out of Abkhazia. I also believe that Russian military is very hungry and they should be fed humanitarian chicken, and I believe United States government should supply humanitarian aid such as poultry and meat and dry soups and other food, dry foods like egg powder, soups and meat. It is very important for retaining peace with Russia, because that way Russian military won't be hungry and Russian military members and won't commit atrocities and murders. If they see that Western people don't supply humanitarian aid stopped in flow is stopped in Russia, they would understand that they are left on their own devices and will keep terrorizing Caucasians and killing Western businessmen and Russian journalists and Western journalists as well. So I believe that the United States government should restart the program of delivering humanitarian aid into Russia, and the British and French government. As Russian people are too poor, they don't have enough food and enough money to feed the Russian military and militia. And Western aid should come on time, otherwise war will be the answer and lots of people will die, because hungry people are socially dangerous. Hungry members of Russian military were socially dangerous. They attacked Georgia because they were hungry, they were not fed food like poultry, chicken, meat products were what were missing, because they didn't pay any money. Instead, corrupt regime of neo-communists, Medvedev and Vladimir Putin decided to leave hungry Russian peacekeepers in order to provoke war between Russia and Georgia. But it's shame on them. And I demand that Western governments and Western aid agencies continue supplying direct humanitarian aid to Russian military and the Russian members of Russian militia in order to handle the problems of hunger and terrorism in Russia.